Hello there, this is Miss M. In this video, I'm going to go over some handy things to have to continue working on your child's speech and language development. I work with preschoolers, as I've stated, so everything that I'm going to show you is definitely geared toward my specific caseload. However, these are fun things to have handy when you're working on eliciting expressive language, when you're working on receptive language, and as always, speech sounds. I did recently have some questions on what kinds of toys are good for working on speech and language development. Now, right now what I'm doing is I'm working a lot on providing resources for the parents I work with, since we are experiencing a district-wide shutdown. And so everything that I have are things that I quickly grabbed from my speech room that I thought would be the most functional. Also things that I thought most families might already have. Toys that your children might already have or are easily found on like Amazon or at Target or things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't really have anything I've bought from Lakeshore or specific speech and language sites at this time, other than maybe some apps on my iPad. But if I do show you apps on my iPad, they're most likely going to be things that you can easily find and are free. So when we're talking about toys to have on hand for working with children with speech and language needs, and this also is a great idea. These are great ideas if you're doing teletherapy. Just to, put that out there. But things you should have, or things you might want to have that I'm learning are helping me: blocks or Legos. These are things because you can work on building, and then you can work on blocks. Are probably easier than Legos to do this with, but if you build up a tower, you can knock it over and you can teach some deconstruction. So first we build blocks, and then we get to crash, right? Who doesn't love that? So those are great things to have. I only have a few, and super big shout out to my good friend and my roommate, because she donated these to me. So I'm super grateful. And then other things to have, maybe preferred toys of your child. So maybe your child likes dinosaurs and you already have these around your house. That's great. You can do some very fun interactive play things with these, right? If you have a couple dinos and moms and dads, are you taking turns with your children and practicing that play turn taking, which leads into that conversational turn taking? Those are great ways to use the toys that you already have at home. You can set up maybe a little adventure for your dinosaur to go on and talk about it. So maybe your dinosaur is going to go with you throughout the day. Dinosaur is going to come and have breakfast with you. What is dinosaur going to eat? What does he like to eat? And you can talk about those kinds of things. And then at the end of the day, maybe you've documented taking pictures on your phone of what your dinosaur has been doing with you. And at the end of the day, maybe you sit down together and you can say, first, dinosaur ate breakfast with me. Then dinosaur took a nap with me, and things like that. So those could be great ways to build in all those language components. And parents, remember, if you're playing with your child and your child's maybe not expressing as much to you as you are to them, as long as you're still giving them that input and you're describing what's happening, you can always shorten your utterances and focus on that very functional language. So, maybe your dinosaur, maybe all you're doing is working on put in. And that's fun for your child, because you put in, they like to dump out, right? Super easy. So those are ways you can use what you already have and what your child prefers, because if your child doesn't prefer playing with a stuffed animal but prefers the dinosaurs, the dinosaurs are what's going to get more interaction and more language from your child. So definitely pay attention to what your child is interested in, follow their lead, and then create the play activity or the language activity around that. Speaking of stuffed animals, if you have puppets at home, oh my gosh, puppets. This cat's a puppet too, but the doggie's easier to put on my hand. So puppets are great because with puppets, we can create interactions, and your child might be a little bit more interested in this puppet than they are in me or you, and that's okay. In my speech class, I I always have a puppet near me just in case we're maybe having a day where my student doesn't always want to interact with me. I might pull out my puppet and they might start imitating what my puppet does. So my puppet might say, "Pup, pup, pup," and then all of a sudden my student says it. So that's always a great thing. Puppets are always great. So if you have puppets, I definitely recommend them. If you have stuffed animals and not puppets, I would still recommend using those. They're always a fun way, or like when you're doing story time or anything like that, having the puppets there to be more interactive in the story is always a good idea too. And then, oh, here we go. Some other things, if your child likes cars or if you have cars in your house, cars are very fun ways. I've noticed all of my speech students at some point or other have requested our car tower. We love doing ready, set, go. We love doing 1, 2, 3, go. We love doing stop and go, red light, green light. And again, turn taking. So if you're, going racing cars on the carpet, or you have a chance to play with one car and take turns with that, that's really awesome because then you're practicing that turn taking. I do recommend, if you're playing with your child and you want them to be maybe imitating you, or you want to make sure that you're playing together and not so much withholding something from your child. Now, it's good to withhold, but sometimes you want to be playing more together, right? So having 2 of something when you're working on imitation or when you're playing together is always a good idea, so you can have one and your child has one. Because sometimes I've noticed that's when we might start seeing behaviors, but sometimes you do. Like I said, you want to withhold and you want to have your child request or something like that. So that's always a good idea too, that withholding. But for imitation purposes, I recommend having those 2, so that way you're not having to take it from your child, because then their focus might just be on getting it back and not actually paying attention to what you're doing. So those are some helpful things. Again, super, I'm trying to make this as functional as I can for what you might already have at home. So use your child's toys. Oh, I almost forgot to show you this guy. This is Mr. Ball. Can you see? That is a tennis ball. That, shout out to Mark. I feel like I get all of my speech toys from other people. Get donations. But he gave me this tennis ball and we cut a little slit right here for his mouth, and I put some googly eyes. This is Mr. Ball. If you don't have a puppet, Mr. Ball's a magician. The kids love him. He ate breakfast this morning. Can you see? We feed him things. He talks to them, and I mean, if you have a tennis ball or get your hands on a tennis ball and want to make a little Mr. and Mrs. Ball family, feel free. That I have another one. So we have 2, we have brothers. We have Mr. Ball and I think he's Mr. George. I think that's what we named him. But we have another one of him. And again, I have 2, so that way when we're doing imitation tasks, we can do that. But he's great. So that's a really, really easy way to make a toy or a speech and language tool for your children. Okay, so those are just a few tips. Again, as I come across things, I will add more to that repertoire, but for now, I think that's a pretty good place for you to get started with looking at what you have around your house. And if you have any questions or anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. I hope you're having a magical day, and I will see you again soon.